Hello, hello.
Hello.
And thank you for joining us today. My name is Danielle Larigi. I'm a senior developer advocate here at Salesforce.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aditya. I'm also a developer advocate here at Salesforce. And we are super excited to have you all here on our first LinkedIn Live session. And we hope we'll make good use of your time today.
Thank you, everyone, once again for joining. For anyone that might be joining early in the morning, late in the afternoon, maybe even late at night. I live in Dallas, Texas, so it's pretty late for me. We just want to thank you all for joining. Formally, thank you for joining. And you can connect with us. We have our developer.salesforce.com website where we post a lot of our blog posts and content. You can follow us on Twitter at Salesforce Devs. You can always also connect with us on our dev community. The link is listed there. And then you can connect with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as YouTube as well. And LinkedIn is what we are on right now. Okay, so taking a look at our forward-looking statement, probably see this a lot if you've ever tuned into anything Salesforce, but we just want to say that we might be making some forward-looking statements, some statements about product enhancements, feature enhancements, et cetera, et cetera. Please make all your purchasing decisions based off of what is available in the system today and not anything that we say may be coming to the Marketing Cloud or Salesforce platform. Okay. So we're going to be talking about Marketing Cloud today, and we're going to be talking about all of the programming languages. But before we jump into Marketing Cloud, we just wanted to give a little bit of a background on what Marketing Cloud is before we just go straight into the programming languages. So Marketing Cloud is a Salesforce product that was actually acquired a few years ago. And it's mostly used for email messaging, building landing pages called cloud pages for marketing campaigns. We have account engagement, which is used for a lot of lead tracking, lead scoring. It can send emails and do automations as well. We have our engagement product, which allows you to do interactions with customers. And then we also have Marketing Cloud Intelligence, which was formerly Datarama, and Marketing Cloud Intelligence allows you to build reports and dashboards. And then we also have our product Data Cloud for marketing as well. And Data Cloud is a very, very vast tool. There's so many things you can do with it. Aditya and I are actually working on some content now about Data Cloud, and Data Cloud can be plugged into the Marketing Cloud.
So, fun fact, Marketing Cloud account engagement. Can anybody tell us what its previous name was? It's renamed, just like most of our products here at Salesforce. But
We could keep the poll going till the end of the stream, just asking about the renames.
okay. I think there is a slight delay between the stream and the chat, so I'll keep monitoring the chat. Daniel, you go ahead and continue. I will join in once your demos are done.
Okay, awesome.
And yes, the answer is Pardot, by the way. People are putting that in. Exact target is Marketing Cloud. Marketing Cloud account engagement is Pardot.
It's a little confusing now. Salesforce. So it's really great that you guys are tuning in because honestly, Marketing Cloud is a really, really hot tool that Salesforce has acquired and has been with the Salesforce platform for a long time now. And so to be learning Marketing Cloud, to be learning anything Marketing Cloud, like programming languages, et cetera, is really going to help you because you can see how much Marketing Cloud is used in comparison to comparable products. So it's good that you all are tuning into this stream. So we're going to actually jump into the presentation because we actually have a lot that we want to cover with you today. And we're going to kick it off with AMPScript. So AMPScript is a proprietary scripting language to Salesforce Marketing Cloud. It can be used in many, many different ways across the platform. The first one is in email messages to add in personalization, like first name, last name, any type of information about an account or product. Landing pages as well. You can add in information about a person or a product, anything that can basically be stored into a table. You can use to put into a Marketing Cloud landing page with AMPScript. And you can also use AMPScript with mobile messages as well, like SMS and push. A lot of people use AMPScript for formatting data, trimming data. There's a lot of different functions that are built in for like proper casing, uppercase, lowercase, adding attachments to emails. And it can also be used for working with relational data, like data extensions. And if you're completely new to Marketing Cloud, data extensions are the way that we store data in Marketing Cloud in sort of a relational database table. And it can also be used to insert and update data into data extensions as well. Okay. So AMPScript is a really, really easy language to learn. And the first thing about AMPScript that I'm going to teach you is that you can declare and set variables. So AMPScript has a variety of different types of variables that you can create and set. Here, we're just we're creating a first name, an email variable, and a return values variable, and setting those. And we have some best practices for your variables. So make sure that you're always declaring your variables and setting them separately. You cannot do them at the same time. You should always start your variable names with letters like A to Z. So no 1, 2, 3, 4. And after the ampersand symbol, of course. Variable names cannot contain spaces. So you will always have to use best practices to use camel case or underscore, which is generally best practice anyways with variable names. And you want to avoid names that are already commonly used names for system variables in Marketing Cloud, like email address and date. And you can declare multiple variables at once by comma delimiting the variable names when you're creating them. And you can also set only one variable at a time. So even though you can declare multiple variables in the same line, please remember that you can only set them one at a time. And similar to other programming languages, if you're already a coder, AMPScript has the ability to do conditional statements. So if, else, if, and else statements. There is no case switch, however, in AMPScript. And there is also the ability to iterate over a variable with AMPScript with the for loop. Currently in AMPScript, it's a little bit vanilla, and the only thing that we have available is the for loop. There is no while loops or do while loops or any of those cool other loops. Right now, we do only have the for loop available for you in AMPScript, but if you need to iterate over something like a data extension, that is there and available for you to use. And there's also the ability, like many other programming languages, to create comments. So you can do a multi-line comment, and it's pretty standard syntax that I'm sure you've seen before, as well as a single line comment in AMPScript as well. And there's two types of ways that you can write your AMPScript. So the first way is using block AMPScript. So you can kind of create like this AMPScript block with the % signs and then the little brackets. And then you can write multi-line AMPScript within the block. And then you can do inline AMPScript as well if you just want to put in like a quick personalization string. And you can see here that whether you're doing it with the block AMPScript or whether you're doing it with the inline AMPScript, they ultimately come out to the same thing. All right, and so here's just a quick example of us creating and setting variables in AMPScript using block AMPScript. All righty. We'll take a little bit of a breather before we jump into SSJS. Any cool comments coming into the chat, Aditya, about AMPScript?
Not yet. There's only one question: is AMPScript similar to JavaScript?
So AMPScript is a scripting language, but it is not similar to JavaScript. I would not say that it's similar to JavaScript, but it is a scripting language. That's a great question. But what is similar to JavaScript is server-side JavaScript, SSJS.
That's a very nice segue.
It was. It was like it was almost as if we planned it. We promised we did not plant that person on the string to do that. Okay, so server-side JavaScript. So server-side JavaScript is JavaScript code that is processed by Marketing Cloud servers. So instead of using the browser to render the JavaScript on the client side, Marketing Cloud uses its own servers to render the JavaScript. And one of the major differences between server-side JavaScript and client-side JavaScript is that it does not work with the document object model. And also, server-side JavaScript does not function with exterior libraries. So unfortunately, right now, if you find a cool library that you want to import and use some functionality from that library, we don't currently have the ability to support that right now. But hopefully in the future, that will change. Much like traditional JavaScript, you can use loops, for loops, all the wonderful loops you can use in JavaScript today, do whiles, all those things you can use in server-side JavaScript, and you can also create arrays as well. And it's a little bit better for, I would say, conditional logic than working with AMPScript, and the fact that there's a little bit more advanced exception handling if you have errors or if something messes up while you're trying to code. So there is the ability to use client-side JavaScript in AMPScript. I mean, not in AMPScript, sorry. It's late, almost midnight. So there is the ability to use both server-side and client-side JavaScript in Marketing Cloud. So Marketing Cloud has the ability to store client-side JavaScript in something called code resources. And if you are a Salesforce programmer that is on the line with us, much like Aditya, if you're familiar with static resources, then code resources functions very much in a similar way. And so you can upload your JavaScript file to code resources and then reference that in your Marketing Cloud landing pages under Cloud Pages. Okay. So server-side JavaScript already has two built-in libraries that has its own functions. Unfortunately, you cannot create your own functions. You have to use the functions that are available in the SSJS libraries. So there's two libraries, the platform library and the core library. One of the benefits, though, to these libraries is that if anything is updated, we test it to make sure that it's not, breaking, previous versions of a particular function, and that it's playing nice with your code that's already in your Marketing Cloud instance. So here's a little bit of a compare contrast. So you might be thinking, okay, so when do I use AMPScript versus when do I use SSJS? Well, honestly, AMPScript can handle the majority of the tasks that you need to handle. So most marketing cloud professionals are not trying to do, super complicated logic for an email message. They just want their email messages to look good. So if all you're trying to do is basic personalization, like first name, last name, or a little bit of details about a person, like, order history, purchase history, or insert some information about a person into an email message, then AMPScript might be the way to go. If you have a little bit of more complex logic, then SSJS might be the way to go. For some people, AMPScript might be easier to pick up, especially if they don't have a traditional coding background, because AMPScript is really, really simple to learn. But if you are a very, very experienced programmer with already using, Java or JavaScript or already writing Apex, and you'll surely find SSJS a breeze, as well as picking up AMPScript. Okay. So that was our SSJS portion. Now we're going to get into guide template language. Probably
Yep.
Yep, go ahead.
Before that, a few questions. So one question says, where do we insert AMPScript in Email Studio? We are going to show it to you in a small demo that comes after these slides.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is another question, which is, sorry, this thing keeps scrolling up. Is SSJS framework or a library?
SSJS is a framework.
Okay. And so there's also a question which says, when will I create class and method using AMPScript?
So you cannot create your own classes and methods in AMPScript. You actually have to use the functions that are already pre-built in AMPScript. And I'm going to go through those functions a little bit later in the stream. That's a great question.
And the advantage that we have with having veterans on the chat is that they can answer a few questions. For example, Bala Subramaniam did just answer the question, and he said you can't create classes, functions, or methods in AMPScript. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
And there is a question that asks, what is a typical use case in which we need to use server-side JavaScript?
It's a great question. So let's say there's information that you want to pull from a data extension, and maybe let's say you have order history data that you want to pull from a data extension and you want to build it out in a table. You can use an array in server-side JavaScript, which AMPScript just has the lookup and lookup rows function, which might be a little bit underwhelming if you're trying to pull information that might be a little bit more robust into an email template or a cloud page. So that's where JavaScript arrays might be give you a little bit more of the robust functionality that you're looking for to like build out like complex tables within a email message or complex tables within a cloud page. There's also AMPScript, remember, only has that very, very like not quite as overwhelming for loop. So if you want to create maybe some more complex looping functionality, you would probably want to use SSJS for that as well. So SSJS for I would say for like logic, any type of logic or processing of information, SSJS is probably going to be a little bit more robust than AMPScript.
Perfect. So there's a question from Niket asking, how many languages do we need to learn for Marketing Cloud? Please stay on till the end of the session. You will have your answer for that.
Yeah, you're like, this is the third language that you are bringing up on this stream. Well, I would say you don't need to learn them all. But for this stream, we just wanted to let you know everything that is out there and that's available. But you don't need to use them all. I would find it very surprising if you had every single Marketing Cloud language put to use at once in the same email message or the same landing page.
Okay.
But great question.
You can continue, Danielle.
Okay, awesome. So this language, guide template language, is actually introduced a while ago. It's been around since 2014 at least. And I would say it's probably one of the least languages used in Marketing Cloud today. So AMPScript is probably the most used. I would say SSJS afterwards, and then guide template language at the end. So guide template language has a handlebar or mustache style syntax. And I promise you guys, I have tried to see it when I've looked at guide template language. I'm like, okay, where's the handlebars? Where's the mustache? But I just don't see it. But that's what they say it has. And it can help you create email templates. And one of the unique things about guide template language, which is different from AMPScript and SSJS, is that it can parse JSON. So if you do an integration via a REST API service, which spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about that later on. But if you're doing any type of integration with the REST API service, you can parse that JSON into your email messages using guide template language. And here's just an example of what guide template language looks like. Maybe you guys see the handlebars and the mustache that I don't see. But I just wanted to give a little code snippet here to show what guide template language looks like. All right. And finally, we have SQL. Yes, SQL. So all the languages that we have talked about, a few of them have had the capability to do some very, very limited functionality with the database. You may or you may not know that Marketing Cloud is actually built on a SQL Server. And someone asked me before what version of SQL Server, and you guys might ask me that too. And the answer is I still don't know. I still have to follow up on that. But it is built on a Microsoft SQL Server, and the version, tweet me and I'll follow up and tell you what version it's currently on. And SQL is a particularly very useful language for traversing database systems. If you are a Salesforce programmer and you're used to using SQL, then you probably already know how to use SQL, since SQL is very, very much like SQL. And you're probably already used to working with database systems as well and traversing them. And you can do that in Marketing Cloud as well. But there is one small caveat to using SQL in Marketing Cloud. So, in like Salesforce, you can bring up your SQL query builder or your dev console and execute your SQL queries right from there. In Marketing Cloud, there's not a similar console or a similar plugin to be able to execute SQL queries on demand. The only way that you can currently execute SQL queries is in a SQL query activity in Automation Studio. And you can build those SQL queries and retrieve data across data extensions, as well as system data using data views. And I will show you how to do that a little bit later. And so here's just a quick look at a code snippet for what a SQL query looks like in a SQL query activity. And this one is just retrieving any journey builder sends that happened in our particular Marketing Cloud org over the last 24 hours. So you can see that we're selecting some fields from our journey table and our journey activity table and our subscribers table, and we're doing joins. And then we're selecting our criteria, as well as our journey name and our date and time. And then we're able to get all of the journey builder sends over the last 24 hours. So you might be thinking, like, where does this information go? So when you create a SQL query activity, before you create it, you actually have to create a data extension with fields. And that data extension will hold the information that are the results from your SQL query activity. And actually, I just stopped my share so that I can share something else. Just in case you guys were wondering, like, did this thing crash? Okay. And so actually, we do have a blog post that I wrote a little while ago on how to do this more in depth, because on the stream, it would be a little bit tedious to do this from start to finish. But if you are wondering how can you create your SQL query activities, we do have this blog post on our developer.salesforce.com website /blogs, quick plug. And so we have some other SQL queries that you can execute off of data views. So this one will show you which automations failed, which automations completed. And then we also have one that's a little bit more complicated here, which gives you the last end and status of each automation in your org. So all of these are data views. So there's two types of, just to reiterate, there's two types of SQL queries that you can build In Marketing Cloud, the first is going to be off of the data that's stored in your data extensions in Marketing Cloud. And the second one is going to be using data views in Marketing Cloud. And we have information on what those data views are on our developer.salesforce.com under documentation for data views for Marketing Cloud. Okay, so before we jump into a quick demo, I just want to recap a little bit about the 4 languages that you can use from Marketing Cloud. And this is actually not completely all the way true, because we do know that in Marketing Cloud, you can use HTML, you can also use CSS. But aside from those languages, HTML and CSS, and client-side JavaScript, you can use AMPScript for all your personalization needs for your email and subscriber contact data. And then you can also use server-side JavaScript. And remember, that's processed by Marketing Cloud servers. It's a little bit different than client-side JavaScript. And then we also have the ability to use guide template language as well as structured query language. And I just want to check something really quickly. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second because my Marketing Cloud timed out. But while I'm getting logged in, do we have any questions in the chat, Aditya?
Oh, yes. And by the way, REST SOAP APIs and SDKs is still coming up in the session.
Yes. Do not drop off.
So we have Rahul Marwal with us, who is an expert on Marketing Cloud. And he says the SQL Server being used is SQL Server 2016.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Thank you for that.
And he also says that there is a third-party package called Query Studio, which can be used to run queries on the go.
Oh, that's good to know. I haven't heard of that third-party package, so thank you.
And we have Bala Subramaniam, who's given a very valuable resource for anyone who doesn't have access to a Marketing Cloud org. They can still practice AMPScript and SQL on a Heroku app, which he has linked to in the chat. So please bookmark that, because after the stream, I think the chat will be lost.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think, Daniel, you can go ahead. The questions are being answered by our experts here.
Okay, awesome. So I will reshare, and thank you to everyone that's helping with those questions. You guys are awesome. All righty. So Ditya, are you able to see my screen, and are you seeing Marketing Cloud right now?
Nope.
Okay.
Now
what about the chat? You guys able to see my screen?
I'm able to see it now.
Okay, awesome. Because I know there's a slight lag. All right. So if you've never seen Marketing Cloud before, this is what Marketing Cloud looks like. At the top, we have all of our studios and our builders. So email studio is mostly used for email messaging. Marketing, a mobile studio is used for doing mobile messages, SMS text messages, and creating mobile push messages. We have Social Studio, which is actually going away. And then we have Ad Studio, which allows you to connect to like Facebook ads, Google ads, Web Studio with cloud pages. And the list goes on. Analytics Builder for reports, Journey Builder for automations, and then Content Builder for managing all of your content. We are actually going to go into Content Builder and just take a look at some email messaging examples that I created to show what AMPScript looks like. So we had a question earlier about what an AMPScript example looks like. So I did build this email message on what using AMPScript. And so you can see that here it doesn't look so amazingly formatted. That's one of the drawbacks of how AMPScript renders. But if you have a text editor that you love, like Sublime Text or Visual Studio Code or something else, a lot of people do write their AMPScript in one of those text editors, and then they just kind of paste it in here because no one wants to kind of code in this console. But it does format a little bit better on this left side when you view the AMPScript, but here it just doesn't render as prettily. So you can see here we're creating a couple of variables and setting those variables in the template, and then we're outputting the variables in the template. And then there's also the ability to use your data extension data as well as the previewer to be able to make sure that all that data is popping in and that it's previewing appropriately for your email messages. And for the question that we had earlier about can you create classes, and you cannot create your own classes and methods in AMPScript. But if you're curious as to what functions are currently available in AMPScript, we have our developer documentation here. And with the developer documentation, you can see all of the AMPScript functions, and it's pretty extensive, that are available to work with in Marketing Cloud. So that's the first thing. And then the next thing I want to show is just an example of guide template language rendering a pretty similar message, but here we have the handlebars and mustache style syntax. And then we'll just go here to preview and test. And you can see that it's working with the subscriber preview as well. And then really quickly, I'm going to show you one last thing before I hand it over to Aditya to get into our APIs, which he has some really, really cool stuff coming up. So make sure you stick around on the stream. But we are going to go back. And I'm actually going to go to Automation Studio. And this actually takes quite a bit of setup, so I didn't want to take up the majority of the stream time showing you how to set this up. But there's this, you can create your automation in Automation Studio. And then after you create your automation in Automation Studio, you have the ability to, it's not going to let me do the double click trick. Drag in a SQL query activity from here on the left, and then you can configure it. And so you would just configure the properties, put in the query, and then put in the target data extension that you want all the results from the query to go to. So remember, you can query data extensions, you can query data views, but then you need a place to put those results of that query. So that's where you're going to create the data extension with all the fields to be able to hold the information from that query. And so I just wanted to show really quickly how a SQL query activity works in Automation Studio and what it looks like when it's configured. So here's just a basic one, querying a data view, looking at, I believe, subscribers and joining them with the job ID table and looking at opens for the past 30 days for email messages. And my plan is to work on a few blog posts about doing SQL queries with data views. So keep a watch on our salesforcedeveloper.com blog. So I am now going to actually hand it off to you, Aditya.